Hello everyone, this is the second video of the second chapter, and in this video we're going to explore how Stalin rise to power, how they become from an ordinary revolutionary or ordinary member of the Soviet Union to become the supreme leader of the Soviet Union. All right. Okay, so the objective, you need to know what were some of the things that Stalin did to rise to the top, and what were some of the other factors that helped Stalin to get to the top. Okay, the videos I will not play in this lecture. If you like, you can play yourself in the slides. Okay, so what I need to know is Lenin died in 1924, and Lenin, as we learned in the previous video, was the founding father of the Soviet Union. He was the leader of the revolutionaries that overthrew the Tsar and formed the Soviet Union or the USSR. Okay, so he was a very respected figure because people saw him as this person that started a country, you know, like Lee Kuan Yew and so on. So very famous, very respected. Okay, however, there were many people who were eyeing his position. They wanted to take over Lenin after he dies. And we learned in our lesson that Stalin and Trotsky are the two main people who wanted to succeed Lenin, but Trotsky had better strengths than Stalin. As you can see, Trotsky, okay, the main strength of Trotsky you need to identify is he was the military leader. And when you are the military leader, you have the power. There's a very high chance you can take over a country. Okay, you have the support base. Stalin, unfortunately, don't have the control of the military. However, he also has certain position. Later you learn as Secretary General to give positions of power to his friends and allies. They will help to make him rise to power. Okay, and Trotsky, as capable as he is, he also has certain weaknesses. Okay, which we'll explore more in detail later. Okay, so Trotsky was definitely the front runner to succeed Lenin. Stalin, maybe not so obvious candidate. Okay, besides Trotsky and Stalin, there are a few other people who are also aiming to be the #1 leader of the Soviet Union. So some of them like Zinoviev, Rykov, Kamenev, and Bukharin. Later, you will see some of the names as Stalin will make use of them to get rid of Trotsky and get rid of each other, leaving only one man standing, which is Stalin. Okay, so how did Stalin stand out from the crowd and eventually win the race to become the leader? All right, so there's a video here. You feel free to watch this animated video on Stalin's life. So the big question of this chapter, of this subchapter is, did Stalin rise to power because Stalin was very capable or cunning, because he had a very strong character? Or were there other factors, or were there other lucky things that helped Stalin to rise to power? Okay. Same thing, I won't be going through the sources here. Okay. So as I was saying, there are two groups of reasons. So Stalin's own strengths as well as other favorable circumstances that help Stalin. So the one on the left are things that are beyond Stalin's control. Stalin was lucky that things happened in a way that helped him, while the factors on the right, C, D, and E, are the things that Stalin actually actively did to improve his chances. Okay, so let's look at the first two under favorable circumstances. Okay, so these were some of the leading candidates, Trotsky, Stalin, and other candidates. Now, the first factor that helped Stalin to rise to power, a favorable circumstance, was that Lenin's testament was not released. Okay, as I mentioned in class before, testament is basically a will. So before Stalin died, Lenin had certain instructions on how the country should be run after his death, including who should or who should not be the leader of the country. Okay, and in the final years of Lenin's life, Stalin was very close to Lenin. He was living very near Lenin, and he was passing the messages Lenin had for the country. So he was the middleman. But Lenin was very suspicious of him. He thinks that Stalin has an ulterior motive for being so close when he's at his deathbed, when he's very ill. And in this final will, he wrote and criticized Stalin. He basically states Stalin is very cunning, he's very ambitious, but he's not capable enough to run the country. So he criticized Stalin and wanted Stalin to be removed as the Secretary General. So what is a Secretary General, you might ask? Secretary General is you can you basically decide who does what jobs. So you get to appoint people to different positions in the government and the party. Okay, so it's a very powerful position, perhaps not as powerful as Trotsky, who controlled the army, but you get to control the party very tightly. And Lenin thinks Stalin has too much power, he should not stay on as the Secretary General. Okay, and when Lenin died, when people die, we usually will read his will to see his final message. And when people read out his final testament, they realize that Lenin not only criticized Stalin, Lenin criticized almost everybody in the senior leadership. Okay, so all the potential successors, the 6 gentlemen we saw, were all affected by the words that Lenin wrote. And they believe that, you know, we should not release this testament to the public. The public, the ordinary people, should not know what Lenin said, including the bad things they said about them. Okay, so they decided they will not disclose. Okay, non-disclosure of testament. Non-disclosure basically means basically means don't reveal. So I don't want to reveal Lenin's last words. Okay, so that, you know, Stalin and his friends get to keep their reputation. More importantly, they get to keep their positions of power, which Lenin wanted to remove them from. Okay, and so Stalin, okay, also thought Trotsky, you know, was a bigger threat. So let's all keep quiet and get rid of Trotsky and not just blindly follow Lenin's last orders to basically kind of remove a lot of people. Okay, so Stalin also took the chance to form an alliances, not a Troika, to start and plot his way against Trotsky. So this was considered not Stalin's own doing. Lenin's disclosure was non-disclosure was a collective decision made by many people. Stalin was very lucky that the other people also agreed with him that they should not release this last testament. Okay, so it was a bit beyond Stalin's control. So Stalin was a bit lucky that everyone chose not to release it and hurt Stalin. Okay, so Stalin got to keep his position and he could build his power base. Like I said, he could appoint his allies to positions of power and use it to help him rise to power. Okay, the second reason why Stalin was able to rise to power was he was very lucky. His main rival, Trotsky, although he was very capable, although he had the support of the army, he was generally quite unpopular with the rest of the country. Okay, so he was quite arrogant because he thought he's always the #1 choice to succeed Lenin because he controls the army. And as a result, many people in the Communist Party were very jealous of Trotsky, and they saw Trotsky as the main threat. Okay, so even though Trotsky was very popular in the army, he was not willing to try and increase his support base. He thought he has the support of the army and it was enough. Okay, and Trotsky was also very critical of certain Lenin's policies. So it made him look like he was very disloyal to Lenin, all right, very arrogant. So even because of this, many people will dislike him. Okay, last but not least, Trotsky also has a lot of ideas. He has this idea called permanent revolution, which means they want to build communist countries all over the world. Whereas many members in the Soviet Union, okay, members meaning the Communist Party members, they think we should not be so busybody and start communism in all parts of the world. We should just mind our own business, make sure USSR becomes a great country first. Okay. Okay, in comparison, Stalin and many of his allies said, you know, we should mind our own business. We should not get involved in the conflicts in all over the world because we are not ready to do so. Thus, Trotsky lost a lot of valuable support base. He did not try and curry support from other people, and he spoke out against Lenin, and it made him look disloyal and unpopular. Why? Because Lenin was the father figure of the country. If you dare to criticize the father figure of the country, you will probably lose a lot of support in the party as well as among the ordinary people. Okay, and not to mention, okay, Trotsky underestimated allies, the other contenders like Stalin. The other contenders also underestimated Stalin because they did not think he was the main guy to succeed Lenin. So while all the other guys are being attacked, like Trotsky, Kamenev, Stalin managed to, stay under the radar and eventually got rid of his rival one by one. Okay, and many people did not see him even as a threat until they got removed by Stalin, of course. Okay, so Stalin was able to manipulate, form alliances, and slowly climb his way to the top. Okay, he was lucky because his opponents, if his opponents were very strong, very shrewd, Stalin might not have succeeded even if he tried to manipulate his way. All right, so he was quite lucky that his rivals were not so cunning and not so strong. Okay, so this is a third factor. So this is one of the factors under Stalin's ability. So let me just rewind a bit. Okay, this is one of the factors that was considered Stalin's strength. So previously, the first two are lucky factors for Stalin, and whereas the next three are what Stalin actually did to make sure he rise to power. So things that he controlled. So Stalin pretended to be close to Lenin. Okay, wanted to be close to Lenin because Lenin is the father figure. If you're close to the father figure, people think you are the son, you're the natural successor. Okay, and one of the few ways to do it, besides just now I mentioned in the late years of Lenin's life, he was very close to Lenin. After Lenin died, he also made himself the chief mourner. That means he was the host for Lenin's funeral. Okay, so he was able to give a very big speech to praise Lenin and make himself look very good, very loyal to Lenin. Okay, and to make things worse, he tried to make his rivals look like they were not close to Lenin. So for example, he gave Trotsky the wrong date. And when Trotsky was not able to attend the funeral, people would think, oh no, Trotsky is actually not close to Lenin. Trotsky did not care about Lenin. Look at Stalin. Stalin was his chief organizer of the funeral. He's much more closer to Lenin, and maybe he should be the one to succeed Lenin. Okay, he also did things, okay, to glorify Lenin and make himself closer. So like changing Petrograd to Leningrad. Okay, he also photoshopped alter photos to make himself look close to Lenin. Okay, like this one. People used to think actually Stalin was actually quite far, but he altered the photo to make himself look closer. Okay, making himself appear in photos beside Lenin. Okay. So in propaganda, he wrote very he praised Lenin a lot in his writings to make himself look good. Okay, he praised Lenin's policy, like the new economic policy, which Trotsky was critical of. So when he's very close to Lenin, people think that Lenin trusted him, and since he's the father figure, if the father figure trusts you, the rest of the party and the rest of the public will also most likely trust you to be the next successor. Okay, number 4, he has control over the party organization as the Secretary General. Just now I mentioned that when Lenin wrote his last testament, he wanted Stalin to be removed from this position. But Stalin was lucky. He got to keep his position. And now, after he kept his position, he used it to great effect. Okay, he was able to promote a lot of his friends, his allies, to high positions. So when your loyal people are in high position, they will be able to try and get more supporters and do things your way. Okay, and they will also become more loyal to Stalin in return because Stalin gave you your job, Stalin gave you your promotion, you'll be loyal in return. Okay, so Stalin was able to control the Communist Party by appointing his friends and allies to high positions. He was also therefore able to remove people from high positions, people who he thinks are against him or supportive of his rivals like Trotsky. Okay, you will see that Trotsky himself was later able to be expelled from the party. And eventually he ended he was assassinated while he was in exile overseas. Okay, so by using his position as Secretary General, he was able to eliminate his rivals, able to enlarge the number of his allies by giving them promotions. And all this helped him to rise to power, because if you have more supporters in the country, more supporters in the government, they will push for you to be the next leader. Okay, last but not least, Stalin was very cunning. Just now we saw that there were many people trying to be the #1 leader, and Stalin was the one that had a low profile and eventually eliminated them one by one. So he exploited the ideological divisions in the country. So the country, in the Communist Party, you can say there are roughly two groups. We have the moderates, and we have the people we call the radicals. Radicals basically mean they are very extreme. Moderates means they are less extreme in their viewpoints. So let's see how Stalin made use of both groups to get rid of each other, leaving only him standing. Okay, so first he allied with the moderates, okay, to get rid of Trotsky, who is a very radical. Remember, Trotsky is very extreme. He wanted to set up communism all over the world, not just in Russia. Okay, so he allied with the moderates, get rid of radicals like Trotsky. And after the radicals like Trotsky are removed, Stalin in the end turned on Kamenev and Zinoviev. Okay, he after that chose the side of the radicals, okay, and used it to attack the moderates like Bukharin and Rykov. Now you might wonder, how can you use the rivals? How can you use the radicals to attack the moderates when you attack the radicals in the first place? When Stalin joined the radicals to attack the moderates, okay, Stalin will accuse the moderates of being cowards who don't dare to change the country drastically to make the country better. They will say, they only want to do very little things and slack off. So by allying the radicals, he was able to accuse people like Bukharin and Rykov that they are not doing the best things for the Soviet Union, and he used this to get rid of his other key rivals. All right, so very skillful use of alliances and breaking up of alliances. Okay, plus his position as Secretary General, he was able to control alliances, and eventually he found himself the one with the most number of supporters, and therefore he became rightfully the next leader of the Soviet Union. Okay, so this is a summary of all the factors. You can read the textbook for more background information and more explanation. If you don't understand any points, feel free to approach your classmate or even me. Okay, if you want to check your understanding for this part of the chapter on how Stalin rose to power, feel free to use this QR code and this link to test yourself. All right, I'll see you in the next video where we're going to examine whether Stalin's rule was beneficial or harmful for the Soviet Union. And how did different groups get affected by Stalin's rule. All right, see you in the next video.